Hey everyone, Cody Menz here. I have another WoT's new video for you. This video I'm going to be focusing a lot on the new CS52 LIS, which is a brand new tier 8 premium medium tank for the Polish nation, and you can also do a marathon to get it as well, which starts basically today for all servers. Now, I'm going to go more over the tank specifically at the very end of this battle, and once we get back into essentially the garage here, where this tank is pretty darn good. Honestly, it's a little bit too good, if you ask me. And for the most part, we'll get to that in a little bit. So what's kind of happening, Supertest, news of the game, stuff like that. So let's start with that. All these links you can find in the video description below. And the battle behind me is an ace tanker I played tonight on my live stream, where we raffled off a CS52. Congrats for the winner of that as well. So tank rewards. If you haven't claimed last month's tank rewards, then unfortunately you're kind of tough out of luck, because I believe you can't get the stuff, but you might want to check. For September though, the Latin American server announced T14, Strev M42, and also the Chinook Kai. Some pretty darn good tanks. Specifically the Strev's probably the best out of them, considering pretty good premium, and it's the most expensive one. So I always kind of recommend people pick that, because why not? In any event though, some pretty good stuff for tank rewards, kind of continuing the trend of, tier 5 and tier 6 rewards. The daily bounce, so announced, and also it hit Supertest, so it's an upcoming tier 8 premium medium tank for the British nation, the Cobra tank, which he provides a bit of info on this tank, since it was actually, I believe, a wooden mock-up it reached, so it is based off of something, and who knows exactly when it's going to come out, but it hit Supertest. They're testing it now, and it seems like it has a bit of armor when it comes to the turret armor. So, but in any event, you can pop over to the link to that if you want to read a little bit about it. So next up, Gamescom. So Gamescom is going to be starting soon here, and you can gain some rewards, styles, stuff like that when it comes to Gamescom. And the big thing is, so this is one thing I am fairly sure Wargaming NA kind of confirmed it too. So they're doing Twitch drops again, but specifically it's EU CCs that are going to be, and these I don't know if these are for all servers, but this is specifically for EU, these discounts and stuff, but they could be on NA server too, I'm not exactly sure. But in any event, Twitch drops are starting, available August 28th until the 31st. And Wargaming EU channels, plus you can get some goodies like premium tank styles, some t-shirts and stuff like that too. You're going to be able to watch, and it doesn't have the full list of CCs here, unfortunately. I'll link that in the video description below as well. You're going to find a lot of EU CCs will have Twitch drops enabled alongside of the official Wargaming EU channels, and you'll be able to get some goodies. However, even if you have like an NA account, an Asian account, you're going to be able to get the drops. From my understanding and what from Wargaming has said, you're going to be able to get them even if you're on a different server than EU. It's just specifically those streamers will have it enabled, but you just have to have your account linked, your Twitch account to your World of Tanks account, and regardless of the server, you can still get some stuff. Also on Supertest, the T77, they changed some parameters of this tank. They changed it to a heavy tank. They switched some other stuff, reduced the camo, so on and so forth. It's basically going to be a premium version, down tier to tier 8 of the T57 heavy and the T54 E1 heavy tank. Just down tiered down, or tiered down. Yeah, tongue tied there. Moving on, there is the CS52 Marathon. Now, this tank, like any other marathon, is kind of designed so you can get it 50% off. If you work a bit harder, usually 60, 70% off, and you can get the premium tank for a little bit less than a normal premium. If you want it 100%, for free, you're going to have to work pretty hard for it. It's a pretty darn good tank. I'm going to get into that you know, a little bit here when I pop into the garage after this battle, and honestly, they buffed it, you know, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit here before we reach, you know, the garage. And, you know, this page here with the marathon info, you can also find all this stuff in your garage as well. Just goes over how it works, and specifically when it comes down to the marathon, if you do have this tank, say if you buy it ahead of time, or if you want it on one of the NACCs, because any partnered CC does have one of these tanks to give away. I already gave mine away tonight as of me recording this. You do have missions where they are locked to where they only work on specific days, and you have to be playing the CS52, and you do get quite a few goodies when it comes to these missions, but again, they only work on specific days, so do keep that in mind. And you know, there's some nice stuff like training manuals and universal fragments and boosters, and it is just something to where if you're not going to be playing every day, you know, it's going to be difficult, you know, because you're not going to be able to get all of these. But it is a nice thing for people that do buy the tank ahead of time, or earn it ahead of time, even though it's very hard. But there are a crap ton of, you know, these missions that kind of go through. But it is a little confusing. You just have to note that they only work on specific days. Last but not least, so these are the changes that they did to this tank before they released it and gave it out to CCs to play and this and that. So they've recently buffed the engine power of this, and now compared to the tech tree one, it has a better power to weight ratio, stronger engine. On top of that, they increased the whatchamajig, the gun depression words. It is late here when I'm recording this, guys. So now it has 7 degrees of gun depression, and they also greatly improved the vertical stabilizer, the on the move accuracy. These values are very good, especially the turret rotation. That match you saw me play there before I died, that was without a vertical stabilizer, just 100% crew, which I guess minimized that by mistake. It has 100% crew, brothers in arms, and that's it. No vertical stabilizer. I was just using optics, vents, and a rammer. So the on-the-move accuracy is pretty freaking good. So that's just one thing that they buffed before it came out, because this tank, honestly, you know, I've been keeping an eye on it for a while. It's been pretty good, and it had trade-offs to the tech tree tank, but it wasn't inherently better because it had more alpha, less DPM, less accuracy on the move, and it was a little slower. Now, honestly, this is one of the best tier 8 medium tanks. We'll go into that in a little bit of detail when I get into the garage here in a moment. Let's look at the endgame screens, because honestly, sometimes it's a little too easy to ace these things before they come out in the live server. However, you know, we got an ace here on the live stream tonight on Twitch, and I was like, oh, you know, I aced this thing, but it was kind of a cheap one. But, you know, all things considered, I did a pretty good amount of damage. Like, this thing does a decent amount of damage for a tier 8 medium. It's like a Lanson C's gun, but better, because it has better on the move accuracy. So, you know, that's something to keep in mind. It's a Lanson C gun, but basically on a T44-100 in a sense. That's the best comparison. And, you know, 1400 base experience is pretty darn good. And overall, you know, the premium rounds, we'll get into that in a second, are pretty unique in the sense of things. So where we'll get into, you can't just go off of the penetration value, but the shell velocity is pretty good too. So let's hop over to the garage here. All right. Anyway, let's get into the CS52 LIS. Now, getting into the stats here, and before I get into these, honestly, this tank, it's very hard to say, so I don't think it's game breaking or overpowered. However, it's on par with Progetto 46, T44-100, even like say the Brest, even though the Brest is very different. It's basically one of the best tier 8 mediums, just flat out, to where I have a bad feeling, because, like, you know, this tank, it was honestly balanced before this past week. Like, it was on par with the Tech Tree one. Now it's just flat out better. It leaves it in the dust. Where, you know, we saw recently in the last update, you know, with the equipment, where they, you know, kind of caved, and now they buffed the Progetto 46. You know, they buffed the EBR-75 and caved into people kind of complaining that they were going to balance those things via game mechanics. And honestly, at this point, I feel like Wargaming, they were moving forward, and now they're like, okay, people honestly aren't that upset that we're releasing really freaking good premium tanks. So why don't we just make this thing a little bit better? And it's going to make people want to do the marathon, you know, spend more money. And it is a little bit frustrating where, you know, the last thing this game needs is another really freaking good tier 8 premium tank that's better than a Tech Tree. And, you know, it's not game breaking, but I would say like this is probably the best single shot tier 8 medium. Like, you can argue the Lanson's comparable because the Lanson does have that better camo. So it's a little bit different gameplay. However, we'll get into this tank here. So comparisons here. You know, we have the CS-52. These are all 100% crews, no equipment, no crew skills, you know, no nothing, no camo, so on and so forth. CS-52, you've got 320 damage, so Lanson C's gun here. Same penetration as the Lanson C as well, you know, so it's a little bit worse than the Tech Tree. And the premium shell here, so your penetration, 252 millimeters. It's good. It's not the best, but it's good. Look at the shell velocity. So it's 1,569. That is really freaking good. Like, you've got yourself basically like a Swedish TD, you know, firing out of this thing with that good shell velocity. The Tech Tree one's different, the where it has heat, so higher pen. However, really crappy shell velocity here. And if you're looking at other things, so like let's say the T44-100 here, you know, you have higher penetration in that, and the shell velocity, it's just crazy. So 1100 shell velocity for the T44. Lanson C, you've got 1150 for the shell velocity. And then you go for the CS-52, you have almost 1600 for the shell velocity. So like throwing something in there, like the tier 10, which is really good, Streb 103B, and you're looking at the shell velocity on its APCR rounds, it has better shell velocity than the freaking Streb 103B. It's crazy. It's just, that's just one thing to where it's really freaking good on this tank. So moving on now. So that's, you know, when it comes to guns here, like, is this the best gun? So there are some things on this you can't see, so the on the move accuracy that I covered, you know, over here, and it's on rykozat.info here when it comes to some of these on the move accuracy values. So as we move down, gun depression, they buffed it from -6 to -7, so it's a little bit worse than the Tech Tree one. It has a little bit better gun elevation though, so it's pretty good. Not as good as the Lanson C though, but -7's pretty freaking good. It's not like you're gonna struggle too much, and it's the same as the T44, T54 Mod 1. So it's just average. You know, aiming time, nothing to see here. It's not bad. Accuracy, good. A little bit worse than the T44-100, but it's still good. And DPM, most of these tanks are pretty similar. T54 Mod 1's a little bit behind. So right now, if you're comparing just against the Tech Tree here and the other tanks, the CS-52, you've got good alpha, you've got really good shell velocity. You might lack a little bit of like raw penetration when it comes to your premium shell, but 252 is great. You know, in my opinion, is not a negative for a tier 8 medium tank. You know, it's a little bit low compared to some, but it's still really good. But, you know, gun depression, you know, it's just, the gun on this is really, I hate to keep saying really and emphasizing it, but the gun's near perfect because I really like the Lanson because it hits hard, but, you know, it doesn't feel that wonky because if you go over to the on the move accuracy here, and for those looking at tanks.gg and stuff, they are not updated as of this video. The on the move accuracy of 0.08 is fantastic for a tier 8 medium tank. 0.14 is better than average as well, but the main thing you're looking at, the turret traverse, is really important here. So the on the move accuracy of this is just, it's better than the tech tree CS53, it's better than the T44, better than the Lansen C, you know, obviously better than the T54 Mod 1. It's just really, that's one of the things that you don't see, and they just recently buffed it to where that was a downside of this tank compared to the tech tree. But now that they've removed that, that's not a weakness. It's actually one of the better on the move ones, where that last battle you saw, I just threw on vents, optics, and a rammer, because you don't need a vertical stabilizer. You don't need improved rotation mechanism. You just don't need that stuff. And once you get something like smooth ride and, you know, stuff like that for your crew, it's just going to get even better. Moving on now. So when it comes to armor, like, this thing doesn't have the best armor at tier 8. Like, the T54 Mod 1 is better than both, you know, the T44 and the CS52. However, your armor is still, it's pretty darn good. Your hull, it's like butter. It's like the T44, you're going to get penned on the hull unless it's a low tier shooting you. But your side armor is pretty strong, and it has, you know, some space armor on the side, so it protects you from heat. You can side scrape a little bit in this thing. Turret armor is pretty good. You're not going to be able to deflect like tons of tier 10 rounds and like TDs and premium rounds. However, the front of your turret is pretty strong. However, you do have cupolas on the top that people can shoot. So compared to the T44, CS52 I would say is the better turret, because T44, the very front of the turret, you can actually pen a little bit easier than the CS52s. However, this does have some hatches you can hit, kind of like the T44 too. So armor is really good on this. You know, it's still tier 8 medium, but pretty good. When it comes to power to weight ratio, it is slower than the Lansen C significantly with the power to weight ratio. Same top speeds in reverse and forward and backwards. And the T44 is a bit faster than it, you know, as well, you know, both of those categories. However, you do beat the CS53, the tech tree tank now, since they buffed the engine power. So you're faster, plus you have a better reverse speed. So another good thing in this thing's category. Traverse speed, you know, great. It's not the best here, you know, it's at the low end. However, it's not terrible. When it comes to camouflage, these are all pretty much in line. You know, there's nothing really to see here, and the V ranges are all 380. It's really hard. So like, going back into this tank in the garage here, this tank, honestly, like, they overtuned it. You know, before the buffs they did recently, the tank was good, but it wasn't, you know, the best. But now it's hard to say, like, this isn't, like, the Progetto, you know, it isn't, it's just, I can't wrap my head around this, where, you know, I want to say that this is the best tier 8 medium, but I hate to, like, jump the gun. Like, it's the first day, it's my first, like, you know, 10 or so battles, but the tank's got almost everything, to where, like, the T44 100 is a really good premium tier 8 already. This sacrifices a little bit of mobility. However, you get that alpha and also that shell velocity, to where you also have the really good on the move accuracy. So it's really tough to say. I don't think it's inherently the best, but I kind of want to say it. But at the same time, you know, it's really hard not to say it's one of the best tier 8 mediums as well. At the very worst, it's on par at the Progetto, the Lansen C, the Brest, the T44 100. And it's a little bit scary, just because, you know, Wargaming was doing a pretty good job in recent memory when it comes to premiums and, like, reward tanks, releasing ones that are good, but they have trade-offs. Usually they're better at something and worse at something than the tech tree tanks. The only thing this thing's worse at is 1 degree of gun depression and about, like, 90 DPM compared to the tech tree one. Meanwhile, it's better at everything else, essentially. So this is one of those things where, you know, let me know in the comments, you know, if you're actually listening this long, like, what you guys feel about this. You know, it is a good chance this marathon to get a tank, you know, kind of cheap, and it is a really good tank, but it doesn't really instill a lot of hope, because up until this equipment patch, they were moving to balance the game better. And, you know, people, don't get me wrong, I understand people who beat on wargaming for like pay to win, this and that, blah, blah, blah. But they were making strides towards betterment, you know, in that in that category. And then with the whole Progetto 46 and EBR 75, kind of afraid that, you know, it's just gonna be, it's gonna go back to releasing premiums that are broken. And while this isn't game breaking, you know, it's basically they're releasing just at that top, you know, 1% of tier 8 mediums. They just released another one there. Meanwhile, the tech tree ones, almost all of them, you know, are towards the bottom or the middle. There's not like one great tech tree tier 8 that really stands out for a medium tank. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. I will see you guys next week. Have a very nice weekend and very good week, and enjoy the Gamescom Twitch drops. Remember, EUCCs, and I'm gonna put the link in the video description if I can find it, and you can earn some goodies. Otherwise, pop into some other NACCs, partnered ones. There's a crap ton of us now, and should have some chances to win one of these tanks, permanent one for you guys. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a good one. See ya.